So these are the parts. This is a test batch of parts. Third time printing it. I just finished printing it. Haven't looked at it yet, but it looks like it's okay. So some of these supports are like manually catted in back when I was using Fusion 360. Because I wanted to keep the parts hollow. These days I'd probably just, my more recent parts, I just use the slicing software and then import it into Blender. And I do a lot of layout work in Blender because, like the scaffolding around here, in Blender, like if I had to print a part right there, I could just kind of cut out some of the supports here, which is really handy to be able to do the kind of layout work in Blender. These parts I'll break off by hand, and I've kind of dialed the supports into where I don't break them anymore. So I can just push them off. They're not so rigid that they're too hard to push off, and they're not so loose that they fall off while I'm washing them. I'm cleaning them, getting all the isopropyl off. You want to keep your resin clean, so it's like I can kind of like put some like shaky. I can shake these things and kind of put some effort on them, put some elbow grease on them to get the isopropyl off. The supports are strong enough for that. I kind of ship these as is because my customers in the hobby market are used to cutting parts off of sprues, and this is probably overall less work than that. But still, I can't push these all off manually. Like, you kind of get in a groove. If you print like your stack narrow enough, you don't even have to cut off. You don't have to like get some snips and cut off all of the supports on the scaffolding to get to the parts. I can just break off these fire hydrants easily enough, and these trash cans, and then I can kind of get my fingernails in there and break off these parts, and then that makes the parts behind it accessible to being pushed off. It's a process getting it all dialed in, but it's doable. And I can print 8 of these at a time, whereas if I were printing them flat on the build plate, it'd probably be more like 3. And if I wanted to go crazy and print even more higher, I could do that as well. It's just that the build plate and all the parts start getting kind of heavy and unwieldy, and I don't really like messing with that. But I could do it, and I am kind of working in that direction of just getting my processes dialed in, where I can handle bigger build plates with more stuff on them. One thing, I do give up the ability to just rapidly print a lot of products if I get behind on orders. I find that with with resin stacking, I do have to increase the lift distance of my build plate. Because if this fails partway through, it's just a complete disaster. Not for my customers. My customers get free bonus parts, but for me, it sucks. Now, if you're printing just the same parts over and over again, like if I just had like the same parts on the bottom, and then those parts again on the next layer, and then those parts again on the next layer. Then if it failed halfway through, I would still get parts out of it. But because I have all different parts, that doesn't work so well for me on each level. Like I really need this thing to print completely, perfectly in one shot. So I have a battery backup on my resin printers and increase the lift height. And so this will probably take like 12 hours to print. 10, 11, 12 hours, something like that on my Saturn 3. But I can get 8, so that's kind of nice. So while I can't just immediately respond and print something and ship it the same day if I get behind on orders, I get in the groove of just kind of keeping track of what inventory I have, and it's just kind of nice not having to handle 2 or 3 times as many build plates to print the same parts. And I clean these parts, like I'll have 8 of these, like a row of 8 of these things, and I'll clean them all on the build plate. And then if I can, I cure them on the build plate too. With this stack, that's going to be a little tricky. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But let's say this was all one solid block of parts, which it's not because I have these loose parts down at the bottom. I could just break off, generally I'll blowtorch the bottom of the build plate a bit to kind of warm up the resin at the base. Not necessarily with these parts because I'm using flexible resin with them, but with the standard resin it shatters easily. So if I warm up the build plate or just put it in front of a space heater or something, then I can just, if I could just break this all off as one solid part, which I do with my N scale stuff, that's all just one solid block of parts. Then what I can do is I can put like 4 of these on the tray of the curing turntable, and then I'll have like another flat disc that I'll put on top of them, and then stack 4 more parts on that, and then I can cure them all at once. With these loose parts, that's going to be a little tricky. I might rethink how this is working down here at some point. I might make this all just one solid block of parts so that curing it works easily like that. Curing them on the build plate, that generally means I'll put the build plate in my curing machine sideways. And again, since this is taller, like if this was 2/3 of the height, I could probably just put this build plate with the parts on it sideways in my curing machine and have it go around and around and around, and it would cure them all. Except these, because there's multiple layers here and these are all going to be rather densely packed in, I doubt the UV light will get in to cure inside of them. But with my shorter stacks, I just do that. I just put the build plate the cleaned build plate with the parts on it sideways in my curing machine, prop up the handle with like a 1, 2, 3 block, and have it go around in there, and that cures my parts. Then I just warm up the build plate, chop off the parts, and there's nothing in here that's delicate. So I don't really need to, if I have really delicate parts, I'll wrap those in like plastic wrap to protect them. But these parts here, I could probably just wrap them, just one quick wrap in plastic wrap to keep them all together. Maybe put that in like a bubble wrapper, and then in a box to keep it from rattling around. So I would have to like handle and post-process about 2 or 3 times as many build plates if I were printing them flat on the build plate. And then I would also have loose parts, which I would have to handle all those loose parts and arrange them in the curing machine. As a solid part, I do less work in that respect, because I just have to handle way fewer parts to get them cured. So that reduces the amount of time I have to spend post-processing. Pushing these parts off, like they're all designed so that I can just push them off. If you print like a narrow stack like this, you can reach in with your fingers and push all the parts off without having to cut off all of the supports on the scaffolding to reach the parts. You can kind of get in a groove. Like I could just break off all of these fire hydrants, break off these smaller boxes, break off these trash cans, and then I could get my fingers in and push off the propane tank. So you can get in the groove of pushing these parts off quicker. And yeah, it works pretty well. I mean, I can be competitive with injection molding, which is pretty crazy considering they spend probably $50,000 in tooling costs to do this kind of stuff, and I can just iterate and change and improve things with a few clicks and tweaks in Blender and maybe a couple hours of work really. And I have a new modified, improved product where they would have to spend thousands of dollars remachining their injection mold. Pretty cool.